I mentioned that the closing of a project is very much project dependent in a way that, depending on the type of project you're working on, the closing and handover activities could be quite different. So, but I just wanted to give you an example to give you an idea of, on a typical project, what the type of work you would have to do during the closure of a project. So I've split them into two categories. So those activities here, we're just closing, and those activities here, we handing them over to business as usual teams usually. Example of closing activities. So we have several categories. I've tried and put that into categories. So reports, resources, and lesson learned. So reports. The key document here is a project closure document. So that's a project manager role to put this document together. So that will encompass all the closure activities. So part of this document would have a stakeholder sign-off. And then we file and archive all the reports. Obviously, sometimes there's some project folders where you just file all this. The resources, so that could be various type of resources. That could be, obviously, you release all the resources, human resources that are still working on the project. But that also could be that you are, paying off all the final invoices, and you publish the final budget figures, and you work with your finance team to make sure that the numbers are all in sync. The final category I have is lesson learned. So lesson learned, we'll have a look at this on the next slide, but it's more or less when the whole team discuss what has been going okay during the meeting and what could have gone better. And then at the end of this meeting, or sometimes you just have a document that is being created within this meeting. But usually it's better to have a meeting and then you create this document. So the handover activities, on the other hand, that's something that we need to ensure that we are handing over to the appropriate team. So I've put that into two categories, deliverables and the risk and issues. So deliverables, when we hand over a final product, our bridge, our website, our software, we need to make sure that the stakeholders are happy with it, that the business owner is okay. So we need some type of sign-off, implementation sign-off, maybe project closure document. They need to say that they are fully satisfied and that we can move on. Operations documentation to the business as usual team. Say you build the bridge, you need to give all the operations. You have all the knowledge, so you need to give all the operations documentation to the team who will be maintaining this bridge. Website, the same thing. Software, the same thing. So training is some type of train the trainer. So you need to ensure that as the knowledge is within the team, that you hand over that knowledge to a training team or to individuals. And also, your project team needs to still be involved if there is a warranty. So they're probably shared with another project. You might not want to have the resource still working full-time on your projects just to support. So they probably need to be shared with other projects at this stage. And risk and issues. So in our issue log or issue register, we might have some issues that we didn't get a chance to complete. They obviously were not critical because we still managed to implement the product or the project. So they're probably minor issues, but the team that will be running with the product, the business as usual team, need to be aware of those and they need to fix them. So we need to give them this issue register somehow. And risk is not as obvious, but sometimes there are some risks that are still valid at the end of the project. Usually in a risk register you have risks that would come and cause issues to the project, but sometimes they are just risks that are there and that are ongoing, and therefore it'd be useful to give them to the business as usual team. That's not mandatory, so that's just a nice to have. It might not apply all the time. So I wanted to highlight how we could simplify this. We don't want to be the project manager who left without paying off his invoices. So I highlight this one as an important activity. We want to have a sign-off. This is key. We have delivered something, we worked really hard. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, stakeholders are happy with it and we have provided them with what they wanted. And then you know that you've done your job as a project manager. That is also required, otherwise that's going to come back and haunt you in a way. So you need to make sure that the product can be supported moving forward. This seems to be quite a critical document, but it does not always get done. Obviously, if you go through all the methodology standards and the likes, they tell you this is absolutely mandatory, that has to happen, but with my 20 plus years experience, it does not happen that often. You're implemented, good on you, go to work on another project. So this is why I would really recommend that you have these 3 things done. On the next slide, we'll have a look at those 2 here.